Okay, welcome to the Planning Commission meeting on the 27th of January. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
Second,
Call the roll?
Commissioner Newton,
Yes.
Commissioner Patrick. Oh, is she not? I can't tell.
I didn't see her on.
You didn't see her on. There's so many there. It's hard to see. Okay. Commissioner Moritz,
Yes.
Commissioner Bennett,
yes.
Commissioner Kirk,
Yes.
Commissioner Knopf,
Yes.
Chair Johnson.
Yes. Okay. Is there any amendments to the December 2nd Planning Commission meeting?
To the minutes?
To the minutes of the December 2nd Planning Commission meeting?
Oh, not the last one. Yeah.
We'll be doing the minutes to our regular meeting after this item.
Oh, okay.
I move to approve the minutes of the December 2nd meeting.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, call the roll.
Commissioner Bennett,
Yes,
Commissioner Kirk,
Yes.
Commissioner Knopf,
Yes.
Commissioner Newton,
Did you say Newton?
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
Johnson.
Yes. Okay, are there any amendments to the meetings for the December 21st Planning Commission meeting?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Page 4 of 9, first paragraph. Where it 1, 2, 3, 4, fourth line down, it said, she also said that she thought that the original drawings of the driveway were a middle finger to the city. That's not what I said. I said an architectural middle finger.
Right.
And then I have on page 3 in the first paragraph, the second to the last sentence, I can't quite figure out what it says. He agrees with Adams that having a condition of approval to not attach to the stabilizing beam is not necessary. I guess that's clear, but I wasn't really sure when I read through it. And then on page 5, Johnson brought up the option of a folding ladder. I'm not really sure that I actually mentioned a folding ladder. I mentioned that I have at my place, I have a throw-out ladder, but what I was after when I said that was that there would be options to the proposal that was given to us. And I think that's the only corrections I have. Any other corrections?
Down at the bottom of page 5, my name is not instead of not, which is a common mistake.
I will correct that.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve corrected minutes?
I move to approve them.
Second,
Call the roll.
Commissioner Patrick is not here. Let's see, Commissioner Bennett,
yes.
Commissioner Kirk,
Yes.
Commissioner Knopf,
Yes.
Commissioner Newton,
I was absent, so I'm abstaining.
Chair Johnson.
Yes. Okay, we need to elect Officers, a nomination for the chair and vice chair. Are there any nominations for the chair?
Can I ask a question first?
Yes?
Is it possible, I don't know if this is possible or not, but is it possible for Chair Johnson to remain in the chair until his term, until he leaves the planning commission? And then the new chair would step in? Is that a possibility?
So I had that same question, but I couldn't remember when you,
Yeah, no, my term isn't up until the end of April. So I could conduct the meetings up until my term is over at the end of April.
Because that's what, I mean, I just thought that would be better. And then whoever is the new chair, and I just want to say that I think that whoever is the new chair should be someone who's going to be on the planning commission for a certain amount of time, and the vice chair, not someone who's going off the planning commission. For continuity, I think it's way better if it's, I think Janet and Charles and I are all going off. So I don't think we should, I just don't think it makes sense for us to be officers, because it just sort of, then you have to, start again with the elections. I would like to see Chair Johnson stay in place until the end of April, and then the new chair who we elect tonight could take over at that time. I don't know if that's acceptable to other people or not.
Works for me.
yeah. Me
Bill, is
too.
there any reason we couldn't do that? Is there any kind of term limits?
I didn't hear that question.
I asked if there was any reason we couldn't do that.
Did you hear that?
No,
And what I
didn't.
don't have. So Commissioner Newton was asking if there's any reason we could not, that the planning commission could not follow Commissioner Kerr's suggestion. And what I don't have in front of me are the planning commission bylaws, and haven't really looked at that. I mean, my initial thought is I can't see a reason why not, and two different ways to accomplish it. One is elections that don't take effect until April, or postponing elections until April. And I just haven't looked at the documents to see if that's an issue. I don't believe it is.
Yeah, I don't know of any bylaws, and I don't think it would be an issue. And I can research that, see if there were any bylaws, but I haven't seen any being here.
Well, each committee has guidelines that they have to follow. And so I don't think they're called bylaws.
Yeah, in the charter,
Right.
there's ordinance language, but I don't.
There's other committees that have done the same
Yeah.
type of thing.
Yeah. And Joe, he was vice chair, and of course, his term was up last month, so that's an open position. Okay, so are there any other people who want to be nominated as chair?
And is, when you're talking about chairmanship, this is through April, or this is taking over as of April when you're off?
No, at the last meeting in April is the last term that I have, my second term.
Yeah,
So this would be nominations for someone to take over from you when your term ends at the end of April. So they would host the first meeting in May. Is that correct?
yes, May would be their first meeting.
But I think, go ahead, Lee. Sorry.
No, you go ahead, Barb.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think what we're doing today is nominating you to be the chair until the end of April.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
Right.
Okay.
and then at the April meeting, we would go through elections again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes the most sense, because that gives the new people kind of time to acclimate and see how the meetings are run and, be part of it. And then in April, we could have regular elections for people who are, going to be
Okay.
on the commission.
Good.
Okay, so Lisa, do you want to make that
Yes.
nomination.
So I move that we nominate our current chair, Darrell Johnson, until the end of his term on the Planning Commission, to stay in office until that time, at which time we will have elections for a new chair and vice chair.
I'll second.
So, but don't you want to elect somebody to fill Joe's vice chair position?
I don't,
Right now, we're just doing chair.
What's that?
Right now, we're just working on the chair.
Yeah, we can do that next. It doesn't have, you don't have to do it as a slate. You could just,
We'll just ignore the vice chair.
no, that would be next. You could do that next.
We would have that nomination next after we.
Okay. Okay, so is there a second to me being chair?
I second.
Okay, call the roll.
Commissioner Kerr,
yes,
Commissioner Knopf,
Yes.
Commissioner Newton,
Yes,
Commissioner Moritz,
Yes.
Commissioner Bennett,
Yes,
Chair Johnson.
Yes,
Thank you.
okay.
Yeah.
So is there any nominations for vice chair?
well, I have a nomination, but I just want to ask a question first. Barb, are you the chair of Parks now?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Would you be willing to be vice chair of this group?
Well, I was going to ask if Clay would be interested in being vice chair.
I was going to nominate
I was
Clay.
gonna ask you, Bob.
I was going to nominate Clay as chair once we had the new, once, in other words, once Darrell's term was up, I was going to nominate Clay to be chair, and so that, because you're chair already of the parks, I thought it would make sense for you to be vice chair of planning. You guys are the only ones who have any longevity and are going to continue on. Charles and I are not.
Quick question. On the expiration of the term of the chair, does the vice chair automatically become the chair? Or is there an election for the chair?
I believe there's an election.
Okay,
So I would nominate Barb Knopf as vice chair.
And I would say that I'm interested as long as there's a new election in April.
Okay,
Okay. Any other?
I second.
Okay, call the roll.
Commissioner Moritz,
Yes.
Commissioner Bennett,
yes,
Commissioner Kerr,
yes,
Commissioner Knopf,
Yes.
Commissioner Newton,
Yes,
Chair Johnson.
Yes. Okay, this is a quasi judicial hearing regarding the remand. I want to mention that the Planning Commission doesn't often see remands from the council. However, the remand was the result of a party wishing to introduce new evidence. So we are reopening the hearing and will treat this as a continuation of the original hearing. Remand of AA 21-01, Jeff and Jennifer Harrison request for an appeal of the administrative decision to approve a building development permit for MJ Nadjeski at 544 North Laurel Street. AA 21-01 remand of Jeff and Jennifer Harrison appeal of the city's approval to issue a development building permit for 544 North Laurel Street. The property is located at 544 North Laurel Street, tax lot 7,000, map 51019-1A, and in a residential medium zone. This request will be reviewed pursuant to The municipal code, section 17-AA 88.160, review consisting of additional evidence or de novo review and application section of the zoning ordinance, conditions of approval of the city Cannon Beach Preservation Plan Development Subdivision and approved plot. Does anyone object to the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission to hear this matter at this time? Does any commissioner member believe he or she has a conflict of interest or personal bias? Has any commissioner member had an ex parte contact or made a site visit?
Site visit.
Okay, staff report.
City of Cannon Beach Planning Commission rendered a decision to reverse the administrative decision to approve a building/development permit for the Najimi residents at 544 North Laurel of the preservation plan development at the request of Jeffrey Harrison of 539 Laurel Street at its November 23rd, 2021 regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting. You approved the findings at a special call meeting December 2nd, 2021. PC findings are attached to the staff report. Mr. Dean Alterman, on behalf of Mr. Najimi, requests a review of the decision in an application dated December 10th and received December 13th within the 14th consecutive calendar day appeal period from the date of the final order was signed. City Council is held a scope of review meeting to discuss the matter and render a decision to remand it back to the Planning Commission. And that was for additional consideration of additional limited scope hearing. The new evidence is the settlement agreement resolution of the Harding Garage matter. Mr. Altman has provided the settlement agreement, the amendment to the access easement, and the demolition permit is also in the packet. And Mr. Alterman has also offered a condition of approval, which would be no final inspection, and approval for occupancy shall be issued for the house until the demolition of the existing garage on lot 1 is substantially complete. And we have received other material from Mr. Hathaway on behalf of Mr. Harrison, and a letter, email that was just written, and we got it just before 5 o'clock this evening. I'd like to read Mr. Harrison's comments into the record, since I don't know if everyone on the Planning Commission had the opportunity to read those, but I'll do that when you give the public. But I would like to mention that Mr. Hathaway did offer a alternative condition of approval, and let me read that for you. The city shall not issue a building permit to Mr. Najimi to construct a home on his property until the Harding garage is completed, demolished in accord with the demolition permit issued by the city on December 17th, 2021. Any questions?
Jeff, did you, I'm looking for it now. I think I read it, and I know it was referenced in, I think it was referenced in Mr. Hathaway's letter. The timing for that demolition, I'm just looking for that now, for when that work is to be complete.
Yeah, it should be on that attachment. Let me find
Permit's
out.
only good till July, I believe, 2022.
Yeah, what I do know though, Clay, is that we issued that demolition permit. We know the firm that's supposed to do it. That firm is also doing our project on our 7th Avenue. And as soon as that 7th Avenue project, I think it's 7th Avenue, but the North End project, once that's done, they'll have that removed. They prepped it for removal.
Okay.
Okay, the pertinent criteria to be considered are noted in the staff report and listed on the criteria sheet of the meeting page of the city website. Testimony, argument, and evidence must be directed towards those criteria or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or municipal code which the person testifying believes to apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statement or evidence sufficient to afford the decision makers and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes the appeal based on that issue. Persons who testify shall receive recognition from the chair. State your full name and mailing address, and if appearing in a representative capacity, identify who they represent. Is there a presentation by the applicant?
Yeah, you go.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. My name is Dean Alderman. My address is 805 Southwest Broadway, Suite 1580, Portland, Oregon, 97205. I'm here appearing on behalf of the applicant, MJ Najimi. The record before you is the same as it was, except for the addition of the items relating to the demolition of the Harding Garage. In your decision last year, you reversed your building official and revoked the building permit based on the presence of the Harding Garage. The Harding Garage is going away. They have made that commitment. The easement that allowed it to be there has been modified to provide that a building may not be there. The basic issue before you tonight is, at what point may Mr. Najimi begin building his house? Would it be now, because the permit has been issued? Would it be when the demolition starts? Which is what we've proposed as a compromise, since when a demolition starts, it has to be completed within 30 days. You know, at the point the demolition starts, the Harding Garage will go away. Or as Mr. Hathaway suggested, when the demolition is complete. That's really the basic issue. It would suggest to you that you authorize the building official to issue the building permit to Mr. Najimi, either now, but condition occupancy on the demolition being complete, or at the point where the demolition has started. One practical factor to consider is that there aren't a whole lot of contractors on the North Coast, and it's likely that some of the people working on the demolition may overlap with the people working on the building, and there's a certain efficiency to having that work done together rather than as completely separate things, rather than having demobilization and then mobilization for the next project. But that I leave to you. Again, it's very straightforward. Both of the reasons which the Planning Commission relied on for revoking Mr. Najimi's permit have now been solved. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there presentations by proponents?
I just let me know when you want me to read Mr. Harrison's. I don't know if.
Yeah, well, yeah, why don't you go ahead and
Okay.
read that now?
All right, dear Mr. Chair and Cannon Beach Planning Commissioners, we are sorry we are unable to attend the conclusion of AA 2101, but my wife's health must come first today. I know you all understand. We hope you will accept this in lieu of our planned oral statement for tonight. We hope you have read and agree with Attorney Hathaway's proposed condition. We don't believe it will harm Mr. Najimi, but also feel there should be no more margin for failings here. We believe extra diligence is needed. Please do not approve a building permit until the existing garage is completely demolished and cleaned up. This will ensure there is no zoning violation. We feel this is a good time to refresh the commission and staff that the Nicholson PUD is not a regular subdivision and can never be treated as such. This is a planned unit development. Therefore, additional code and conditions must be followed in order to avoid additional zoning violations. A good example of how the planned unit development differs from a regular subdivision can be found in the shared access and maintenance agreement. This agreement was required by PUD approval condition number 2 and dictates approved uses and activities for the required common shared outdoor living spaces identified on the PUD. The proposed deck that Mr. Najimi is proposing to build in this required rear yard to the west of Lot 1 and one of these commonly shared outdoor living spaces. This means that the deck, although on the Najimi lot, is available for use by all of the PUD owners. It cannot be exclusionary for use only by the owners of Lot 1 and must remain available for all to enjoy as they wish. The same goes for all other such spaces on all of the lots in the PUD. We believe there will be other examples of how this common shared outdoor living space cannot be considered private or exclusionary. While the PUD owners may at some point modify the SAMA, the areas designated as common shared outdoor living areas available to all owners cannot be changed without future zoning violations and would place the PUD out of compliance. We bring it up now in hopes of avoiding such foreseeable issues in the future. Last, we wanted to remind the commission that Nicholson promised and council approved a cottage to be built on this lot. At 3,745 square feet, we are a long way from a cottage or even a building that is generally small in scale and appropriate to its setting. Thank you for your attention to this issue and thank you for your service to Cannon Beach. Jeff and Jennifer Harrison.
Okay. So does the applicant or proponents wish to make any additional statements?
Sorry. Just one sec. Sorry, Dean, there you go.
That's all right. Thank you, Chair Johnson. Yes, Dean Alderman again for the applicant. I certainly appreciate what Mr. Harrison is telling you. Those are all issues, however, with the developer, not with my client. They aren't things that Mr. Najimi contributed to. He's simply some guy who came along and bought a lot in Cannon Beach and is now trying to build on it. With respect to the question Mr. Harrison raised about the house being larger than a cottage, when the city approved this planned unit development, I should remind you, they also approved a maximum total square footage for all four lots on this property of 9,000 square feet. It's a number that's considerably smaller than what would be allowed as of right under the R2 zoning. The increase in the size of this house, as you know from the record before you, is balanced by a shrinkage in other lots. One of the other lots, the maximum house size, for instance, is 600 square feet, which is smaller even than many cottages. So that it's something that you have already taken account of in the approval. It's something that's already baked into this subdivision. It's simply a matter of moving space from one place to another. And so I'd ask again that you grant the application subject to one or another of the conditions that have been proposed to either ours or Mr. Hathaway's. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, any further questions? Okay, if there aren't, we will close the public hearing and move to consideration. Okay, is there a motion to affirm, reverse, or modify in whole or part the decision under review?
I move to modify the decision under review. What about what that modification is?
Is that Clay?
Yeah, hi, it's Clay.
Okay,
Would you like me to go on?
if you'd like.
I move to approve the permit subject to approve the permit, but no occupancy permit shall be issued until the garage is completely removed.
Okay.
And so can I just clarify? So no occupancy, certificate of occupancy, but we can issue the building permit.
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Lisa's trying to speak. I don't know if you can hear her.
Nope, thank you. Who, there you go.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Go ahead, Lisa.
I don't agree with that motion at all. I think that it's great that they've come up with this solution of removing the garage, but I think that we need to not issue a building permit until the garage is removed. For all of the reasons set forth in Mr. Hathaway's letter, which all make sense. Right now, to issue the building permit would be out of compliance with not only the FAR, but there would also be the permissible FAR on the property, but there would also be an issue with two garages on the property. So I think that there is a, I don't know how to say this, but there's sort of a matter of broken trust on this property. There has been for years, as far as how things were, how things happened, how things developed, the living wall, all of the turret, all of the different, the Hardings building on an easement, building a 2-story garage on an easement. All of these things have contributed to a feeling of, on my part, this is my opinion, of broken trust. And I think that if we were to issue a building permit now, I'm not saying that the Hardings wouldn't go forward with their demolition, but I don't know. And if they didn't, and if something else came up, the city would find itself in a huge pickle. I think it's a mistake. Legally, I think it's a mistake. I agree with Mr. Hathaway's, his whole analysis. And I think that we should, at least until if the demolition begins, that was the sort of a compromise position that was offered. That's discussable, but either that or not even issuing a building permit until it's demolished. Because I don't think, I actually agree with Mr. Hathaway. It's not even, we don't even have the right to do that. The city doesn't, if it's out of compliance, and it would be.
Well, I agree. I think that I wouldn't proceed with any building permit until we know in fact that the demolition has been taken into effect and cleared before the start of a new building permit.
And I think there should be no building permit until it's completely gone. And then there's no issues at all until the garage is completely gone.
Yeah, I think that, I agree with that.
I'm fine with that.
Best solution, I
Yeah,
think.
that works for me.
As a
Okay,
parliamentary matter, we've got a motion on the floor and we haven't heard a second. And so is anybody going to second Commissioner Newton's? If it doesn't, it fails for a lack of second. Somebody can make a new motion.
There wasn't a second for Clay's motion.
Okay, so then we need a new motion.
Yeah, we do need a new, so Lisa, you want to?
Okay, I move that we we follow through with that the building permit can go forward for the Najimi's house once the demolition of the Harding garage is complete.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, call the roll.
Commissioner Nutt,
Yes.
Commissioner Newton,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritz,
Yes.
Commissioner Bennett,
Yes.
Commissioner Kirk.
Yes.
Mr. Duffy.
Yes. Okay. This is a quasi judicial hearing regarding the public hearing and consideration of CU 21-03 Jacqueline O. Brown request for a conditional use permit for shoreline stabilization at 116 North Laurel Street. CU 21-03 Jacqueline O. Brown revocable trust request for a conditional use permit to replace approximately 50 cubic yards of sand that has eroded the bank on the west side of the property. The property is located at 116 North Laurel Street, tax lot 4000, map 51019DD in residential medium density and oceanfront management overlay zone. This request will be reviewed under Cannon Beach Municipal Code 17.14.030 conditional use permit and 17.42.062 specific standards and 17.80.230 and 360 shoreline stabilization and preservation grading. This item has been postponed until next month's regular meeting, and anyone wishing to provide testimony may send comments to the city website or provide testimony at next month's meeting. So that item will be pushed forward. Next, this is a quasi judicial hearing regarding public hearing and consideration of CU 21-04 LBC trust request for conditional use permit for shoreline stabilization at 4664 Logan Lane. CU 21-04 Mike Morgan on behalf of the LBC Trust, Mark Smith trustee, request for a conditional use permit shoreline stabilization. The property is located at 4664 Logan Lane, tax lot 3401, map 410063B in residential low density and oceanfront management overlay zone. The request will be reviewed under Cannon Beach Municipal Code 17.10.030 conditional use permit, 17.42.060 specific standards, and 17.80 .230 and 360 shoreline stabilization and preservation grading. Does anyone object to the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission to hear this matter at this time? Does any member believe he or she has a conflict of interest or personal bias? Has any commissioner member had a parte exchange or made a site visit?
Site visit.
Site visit.
Site visit.
Site visit.
Okay, staff report.
The applicant, Mike Morgan, on behalf of property owner LBC Trust, Mark Smith trustee, requests a shoreline stabilization structure to prevent erosion from encroaching onto 4664 Logan Lane, as shown on the aerial photograph at the end of this staff report. The property is in the city's residential lower density RL zone, as well as the oceanfront management overlay OM zone. The current request is evaluated against the applicable standards in Cannon Beach Municipal Code, Chapter 1742-060, standards for shoreline stabilization structures in the oceanfront management zone, and the conditional use permit criteria in Municipal Code 1780. The applicant states that the subject property has experienced severe erosion over the previous 2 to 3 years due to king tides and storm surge events. Oregon Parks and Recreation Department representatives have suggested that any new stabilization structure take a more natural approach than the placement of riprap, and the proposed placement of 4 to 8 inch round cobbles at the base. And suggests that any new stabilization take a natural approach. Then the placement of riprap, and proposed the placement of 4 to 8 inch round cobbles at the base of the slope with sand fill. The proposed design would utilize this approach with the placement of no more than 50 cubic yards of cobbles immediately east of the statutory vegetation line and then covered with sand. The sand would then be covered with natural jute netting and planted with willow stakes and American or European beach grass for vegetative stabilization. Adjacent properties have had similar shoreline restoration projects for erosion control purposes. And development permit DP 0606 was issued in 2006 for the placement of a log support structure and repairs to existing riprap at 4624 and 4632 Logan Lane. Additional repairs to shoreline stabilization structures have been authorized as well at those properties. Regarding the applicable criteria, the oceanfront management zone requirements for the relationship to the underlying zone, the staff comment is that the underlying zone is residential lower density, and shoreline stabilization, whether through vegetation or structural, is a conditionally permitted use in 17.10.030D. Regarding uses permitted in the OM zone, the staff comment is that conditional approval of shoreline stabilization is permitted on lots that consist of beach, active dunes, or other foredunes which are conditionally stable and that are subject to wave overtopping or ocean undercutting or interdune areas that are subject to ocean flooding. This project is subject to tidal events that do meet those criteria. The applicant provides a description of a non-structural shoreline stabilization project, which would use approximately 50 cubic yards of cobble. Moving on to the non-structural shoreline stabilization, the staff comment is that the proposed stabilization project is designed to be an alternative to the structural placement of riprap or other constructed barrier, and it will be covered with sand material and have planted vegetation. And moving into the conditional uses for shoreline stabilization, the staff comment is the application indicates that the project is necessary to counter the rate of erosion being seen at the subject property and to restore material that has been removed by tidal and storm surge events. The project will also allow the property to be restored to a visual appearance similar to that of adjacent properties. Additionally, it could also prevent potential tidal ingress that could impact adjacent shoreline stabilizations from the rear. And then moving into shoreline stabilization standards, I believe we've covered this, that the applicant's proposal is described as a small berm consisting of 4 to 8 inch round cobbles with sand and vegetation. And then regarding minimum level of protection, the project as described in the application does not appear to exceed the original footprint of the beach facing yard or natural dune area and does appear to meet the criteria of a Cannon Beach Municipal Code.
Okay. Is there any additional correspondence?
Yes, and Diana is on. I don't know if she's going to want to speak at during that time, so we could ask her. Did she let us know, or?
I think they were going to be there to answer questions.
Oh, just answer questions. Okay.
That's so many.
I can ask her. Diana, if you're out there, let us know if you'd like to speak tonight, okay?
I feel that our letter covered the points that we wanted to make. I don't want to add to your long evening, but if there are questions, I'm right here. So as you guys would like.
All right, thank you.
Okay. The pertinent criteria to be considered are noted in the staff report and listed on the criteria sheet of the meeting page of the city website. Testimony, argument, and evidence must be directed towards that criteria or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or municipal code which the person testifying believes to apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statement evidence sufficient to afford the decision makers and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes the appeal based on that issue. Prior to the conclusion of the initial evidentiary hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional testimony, argument, and evidence regarding the application. The Planning Commission shall grant such a request by continuing the public hearing and leaving the record open for additional written testimony, argument, and evidence. Persons who testify should be recognized by the chair, state their full name and mailing address, and if appearing in representative capacity, identify who they represent. Is there a presentation by the applicant?
Yes. Oops. Sorry. Sorry.
So who's speaking?
It's Mike.
Okay,
But it appears he's getting feedback. If you could turn off a phone or any other device that is also on at the same time.
It might be this other one, Mike. Yeah, there you
go. Okay, Mike, let's see if we can hear you.
I would suggest, Mr. Morgan, turn off one or the other.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was afraid my phone was going to run out of juice, so I'm on my iPad now, which is fine. Okay, my name is Mike Morgan, PO Box 132, Cannon Beach, 97110. I am the planning consultant for the trust, LBC Trust. Just in terms of my my qualifications, I'm a planner. I've been a planner in Cannon Beach for approximately 48 years, since 1974. And I've had a lot of experience with dune issues, as everybody knows. I think everybody knows. I'm also a licensed nurseryman with my wife, Beth Holland. We have a horticultural nursery, and I've done planting extensively with willows and beach grass and all manner of plantings. So I just want to lay out my qualifications. I am not an engineering geologist. I'm a planner, and that's I want to state that up front. Mike McEwen, who also may be joining us shortly, is a contractor, local contractor. He is an engineer and a contractor with many, many years of experience in Cannon Beach. And he would be the contractor that would be doing the cobble berm. So we appreciate the staff recommendation of approval. I've read the Dunes, Friends of the Dunes letter, and I think I can address most of their concerns. Basically, anybody that walks the beach in the last 6 months or year can testify how incredibly damaging the king tides have been on the ocean front. And I think that it doesn't take a huge amount of analysis to make it clear that people are going to start losing structures. They're certainly going to lose their front yards. Cannon Beach is like it's like a broken picket fence. If you walk along, at least in the Tolvana area, there's riprap, and then there's a vacant. There's a unprotected lot with a house on it. Then there's another riprap for some distance, and the lucky few that or the lucky majority, I should say, because most of Tolvana is covered with or armored, I guess you'd say, with riprap. But the ones that are in between are the ones that are really getting hammered. I think that the use of the cobbles has been recommended by groups such as the Oregon Coast Alliance. That's the first time I heard of it. Cameron LaFollette mentioned it in testimony before the Planning Commission. And the two property owners that you're going to hear about tonight are willing to go ahead and use the cobble berm and not apply for riprap because they think that it's worth a try as a more natural approach, a soft approach to shoreline stabilization, especially if the willows, which are quite aggressive, can be given a chance to establish themselves. Those of you that went down and looked at the property at 4664 Logan would have seen the El Mansi property just to the north, and that had a log structure from many years ago, but we replanted that with willows, sakes, hooker willow, which is the predominant species, and fertilized them and irrigated them over the summer because we planted them rather late, but they've really taken off, and it's been a kind of a success story. They've gotten to be quite large. So that's kind of what we want to do on the Smith property. There's no plans to import sand other than the sand that would be excavated in order to create a base for the cobble berm would be replaced over the berm and behind the berm, and then all of the dune face itself would be planted with willows. It's been an extreme year, as everybody knows. So I think we'd like to get on it this as soon as possible. This is the time of the year that willow stakes will actually propagate most readily. The jute netting would stabilize the existing sand face while the willows are given a chance to establish themselves, and then we would have signage up. The dune that we're talking about here is kind of unique. It's kind of a standalone dune. Interestingly enough, I don't know how it occurred, but it looks like a slide, a natural slide, and that's actually what part of the problem is that kids and some adults use it as a slide, and so we're hoping that with the plantings and signage, the dune will be protected and not eroded anymore. But in response to the Friends of the Dunes, I think maybe there are some things that need to be tightened up in the code, such as who's a qualified individual. I'd like to consider myself a qualified individual, and I don't think that it's going to take an engineering geologist and a $10,000 study to try to protect the toe of a dune that's been nibbled away at almost every storm cycle. So there were some other questions that were raised. I think Robert or Jeff can answer that, but we did provide some additional information addressing the fact that no work would be done from above. It would all be from the beach. Machinery would be brought from Tolovana Wayside, and the sand would be imported from Manzanita way off site. There would be no. I'm sorry. In this case, there is no sand being imported. In the Seagulls, there is, but I think we've addressed in the additional findings that I sent. I think we've addressed all of the pertinent criteria under 17.80.190. I guess that's about all I have to say on this. Hopefully, Mike McEwen will be he's just coming back from a project up north. And he would like to have something to say. So anyway, that's my testimony, and I'd be glad to answer any questions. One thing I would like to say is that we met with Jeff and I and two members of the park staff, and the applicants met on site maybe 5 or 6 months ago, and I think Parks is very much in favor of utilizing this approach, and I think that's why we want to go with it. McEwen has located a source of natural cobbles, and I think I'm hoping it will work. So that's what I have to say. Can I answer any questions?
Okay, if there are no questions, are there presentations by proponents? Are there presentations by opponents? Is there a staff response?
Staff recommends approval of this conditional use permit for non-structural shoreline stabilization subject to the conditions outlined below. 1, the applicant shall coordinate this project with Oregon Parks and Recreation Department and obtain all permits required for this work, including beach access for vehicles. 2, Planning Commission provides preferred vegetation planting guidance as per Dune Management Plan 2018 revision vegetation planning specifications language. 3, any preservation grading shall be subject to the following conditions.
And you don't really need to read that. I would state though that Mike, we would also put a 4th condition. We'd like to approve the signage before you put that up.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
And there was an additional condition for yearly monitoring of the area by photographic documentation provided to the city by the applicant.
Sure.
Okay. Does the applicant or proponents wish to make any additional statements?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward. I think it's a very benign and natural approach to stabilizing the dune. We're not grading any dunes. We're trying to restore the dune, which is, I think, a noteworthy goal. So, and we hope you can approve it.
Okay. Are there any additional questions? Okay. If not, we'll close the public hearing and move to consideration. Is there a motion to approve with condition, or deny the application?
One thing, I'm not ready to make a motion at this point, but one thing I will say is the 4th criteria that you listed, Robert, I would like to see more detail around that photo. It would be great if we could get some aerial photographs. I don't know if we can get, or applicants can reasonably get a drone up there, just so we can measure, the city can measure how these are moving, how these different resolutions that we're putting forth are working or not working, how much they're actually moving per year. With the technology we have today, that stuff can be, it's possible that stuff can be GPS tracked, and we could actually start to have a useful conversation in years to come around what's working and what's not. These issues that we're seeing, we've got 3 here in front of us, or I guess 2 tonight. I think we're probably going to see more and more of them, and the more accurate information we get, the better we're going to be in helping other people in this littoral cell. So I think aerial pictures would be a great step toward that, more than just the Google aerial that is kind of tough to actually, it's so high, it's kind of tough to see what's actually happening. So.
Can I?
Sure.
Hey, Clay, that's a great idea. And we have we have drones from emergency management that we just got. So I think that's a great idea. And to have, probably once or twice a year at least, run the same routes. And then we can map those where we've had certain CUPs and any kind of plans put in place. And then compare that with the site reports that are done by the applicant. So we'll follow up with that.
Can you expand? Thank you, Jeff, for that. That's great. Can you expand on the city's role once a project like this begins? Is there someone out to the site? Could there be someone out to the site?
Yeah,
we have.
Yeah, we were.
Beach, and that's a kind of a sensitive issue. I don't know what the monitoring is like outside of those engaged by the applicants.
Yeah, we would, Rick, when we start these types of projects, we first get notified from the state on the drive-on permit. And then we even for any type of grading, usually we'll have Trevor or myself, and now with Robert coming aboard, we'll have one of us go out on site when that. And then with this now, like you said, with the drone, which we got about a few months ago, and Rick's been training on it, Rick Hudson, our emergency manager. So, I think that's another tool to be used on these type of things. But any type of kind of grading, we'll have somebody out there for that now that we have the extra planner.
That's great. I think that's really important. We have, a lot of different, we have multiple agencies involved here. And even in tonight's conversation, we've had some different versions of what was going to be put out there, whether it was sand or cobble. I believe this is only going to be cobble, but I think it's important when looking at this or some of the other projects, there's someone out there to verify it's 50 cubic yards and we don't violate the state's parks rules, or it kicks into their world, and then that we're very clear about that it is a total of 50. It's not 50 cubic yards of cobble and another 50 cubic yards of sand. It is a total of 50 cubic yards. That's my understanding of OPRD's rules around what we can do without getting them as involved as they could be. Is that yours also?
Yes.
Okay.
But is there a way to fashion any approval with those ideas that Clay expressed, the monitoring ideas, with those included as a condition? Because just saying, yeah, we monitor it, it really doesn't make me necessarily comfortable, because I know the other things come up and people get busy. So if that was actually included, that monitoring by the city as a condition of approval, that would certainly make me a lot more comfortable in approving this.
How many days is a project like this going on? This is in and out in a day?
May I speak?
Go ahead.
Yeah, it would be about a day to place the cobbles. It probably another 2 days to spread the jute and plant the willows. 2 to 3.
Thank you.
Okay, does somebody want to make a motion?
So Lisa, you can make that motion, amend the motion to include that as an additional condition. On-site monitoring by staff.
Okay, I'll let someone else make the motion and I can.
I move to approve this application with the addition of a 5th condition, that someone from the city staff is there to oversee the project. Oversee and approve that it meets the criteria laid out before us here tonight.
And I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion?
So I have a question. Does that motion include the use of technology for the yearly monitoring?
My understanding from Jeff was that, and Jeff, please correct me if I'm wrong, was that you were going to use the technology that the city had just obtained in or to cross-check, if you will, the information that the applicants in these various or in this application are providing you. Is that right?
Yeah, what I was suggesting is that we do yearly, at least yearly runs of the beach. And then, hopefully with staff, we can do that more often, but at least once a year, do a run of the beach at the same time every year so that we can map and see the progress of these and see if they are actually being, they're achieving goals.
Okay. Okay, is there a second to this motion?
I seconded it.
Oh, you seconded, okay. All right, if there's no further discussion, let's call the roll.
Commissioner Newton,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritz,
Yes.
Commissioner Bennett,
Yes.
Commissioner Kerr,
Yes,
Commissioner Knopf,
Yes.
Chair Johnson.
Yes. Okay, it's approved. Okay, this is a quasi judicial hearing regarding the public hearing and consideration of CU 21-05 Martin and Maxine Siegel Living Trust request for a conditional use permit for shoreline stabilization at 3915 Ocean Avenue. CU 21-05, Mike Morgan on behalf of the Martin and Maxine Siegel Living Trust request for a conditional use permit for shoreline stabilization. The property is located at 3915 Ocean Avenue, lot 400, tax lot 400, map 41006 BC in residential moderate density and oceanfront management overlay zone. The request will be reviewed under the Canton Beach Municipal Code 17.12.030 conditional use permit. 17.42.063 specific standards and 17.80.230 and 360 shoreline stabilization preservation grading. Does anyone object to the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission to hear this matter at this time? Does any member believe he or she has a conflict of interest, personal bias? Has any commissioner member had an ex parte contact or made a site visit?
Site visit.
Site visit.
Site visit.
Okay, staff report.
As this project is extremely similar to the previous one, would there be an objection to me abbreviating the staff report in lieu of basically repeating information that we've?
That's fine. I think we all pretty much understand that. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
The applicant, Mike Morgan, on behalf of the Martin and Maxine Siegel Living Trust, requests a shoreline stabilization to prevent erosion from encroaching onto 3915 Ocean Avenue, as shown at the aerial photograph at the end of this report. The property is in the city's residential moderate density zone, as well as the oceanfront management zone. The applicant states that there has been significant erosion, which has moved the dune face approximately 10 to 15 feet closer to the house. At the time the house was constructed in 2003, the bank was stabilized with jute netting and European beach grass. However, this has eroded away since that time. While the property may be eligible to place riprap, as it was committed to development prior to 1977, the owners have chosen to use a more natural form of beachfront protection consisting of a cobble berm with willow plantings, a method preferred by Oregon Parks and Recreation Department. Although no documentation has been submitted by an engineer, the applicant states that the house does not appear to be in immediate danger. However, this action is intended to slow the rate of erosion and provide additional distance between it and the dune face.
Okay. Is there any additional correspondence?
No.
No. Okay. The pertinent criteria to be considered are noted in the staff report and listed on the criteria sheet of the meeting page of the city website. Testimony, argument, and evidence must be directed towards that criteria or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or municipal code which the person testifying believes to apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by a statement or evidence sufficient to afford the decision makers and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes the appeal based on that issue. Prior to the conclusion of the initial evidentiary hearing, any person may request an opportunity to present additional testimony, argument, and evidence regarding the application. The Planning Commission shall grant such a request by continuing the public hearing and leaving the record open for additional written testimony, argument, and evidence. Persons who testify shall be recognized by the chair. State your full name and mailing address, and if appearing in a representative capacity, identify who you represent. Okay, is there a presentation by the applicant?
Yes, Mike Morgan, PO Box 132, Cannon Beach. As Robert mentioned, in the evidence that we submitted, and we do have a receipt for this, if it needs to be in the record, I failed to provide it, but when the house was built in 2007, the contractor at that time installed 50 cubic yards of beach sand, imported beach sand, wrapped it in netting and planted it with European beach grass. And that has since washed away. Since the tides and the storm surges of late, there's been significant, I think, erosion, and I agree with the city. I agree with the comment about getting some drone documentation on an annual basis. I think that would be excellent. It'd be much better, if the city was able to do that on a citywide basis rather than property owner by property owner. And it's true that the aerial photos that are used by engineering geologists going back to the 60s are very poor quality. A lot of them only recently has the quality of the aerial photos become sharp enough that you can really see what the rate of erosion is. But with drones cruising down the beach, I think that would be excellent. So, but you can see from the photos that I submitted that even after the January 1 to 3 king tides, there was quite a large chunk of land was taken out right next to the city's steps, the public access steps, and so the cobble berm would protect the city steps as well as the Siegel property. What we would like to do in this case is bring, since it's, so that would be the 50 cubic yards that's allowed by the OPRD. We need to place some additional material behind the berm in order to get the willows going. So we'd like to bring in some sand and pack it in on the backside of the dune where the scarp is for the length of the thing. And I'm pretty sure that was mentioned in the application. But that's allowed because it is west, it's east of the of the zone line. So what we're doing here is talking about, two different jurisdictions, 50 cubic yards of cobbles per OPRD requirements, and then asking you to approve some material behind it, just so that we can get the willows started again. So that's about it. Mike McEwen will be the contractor in this case, and I think it will be a nice addition to the neighborhood, because there's riprap everywhere, up and down on both sides of the Seagulls. It'll be interesting to see how this as a test case performs in that situation. I think Mimi Siegel might be online. I don't know if she wants to make a statement as the applicant or as the property owner.
Are online, thank you.
Yeah,
And
they are.
really just wanted to take a moment to introduce ourselves, my husband Marty and myself. And thank you for entertaining our request this evening. I think that Mike and the previous applicant really described the conditions well, and I won't go into detail to repeat it, other than to say that that the ocean line is really eroding terribly and has more so over the last few years. We think our solution is an environmentally, mentally appropriate one, and it has the support of our neighbors, which was important to us. So I thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thank you. Are there other presentations by proponents? Are there presentations by opponents? Any staff response?
Yes, staff recommends approval of this conditional use permit for non-structural shoreline stabilization, subject to the conditions outlined below. 1, the applicant coordinate with Oregon Parks and Recreation Department and obtain all permits required for the work, including beach access for vehicles. 2, the Planning Commission provide preferred vegetation planting guidance as per the Fore Dune Management Plan of 2018. 3, any preservation grading be subject to the conditions detailed in the staff report. And 4, yearly monitoring of the area by photographic documentation provided to the city by the applicant.
And we'll add that fifth that Lisa had suggested on the previous of on-site staff monitoring as well.
Okay. Okay, are there any other presentations or questions?
I
Okay.
have a question for the applicant.
Go ahead.
Mr. Morgan, on the property labeled, well, it's just immediately to the north. It looks like the rate home. Does that property have riprap?
I believe it does, yes.
Okay. When I went out there, I didn't see riprap. I did see a really thick band of, are those the willow stakes that we're talking about here tonight?
Those are mature willows. Yeah, a lot of the willows have covered over the riprap.
Okay.
So,
and that would be the explanation as to why that property has not eroded.
that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. There are no other questions?
I just had a quick question.
Okay.
Just to clarify, Mike, when you said you would add material landward behind the cobbles, that's the sand that you're discussing?
Correct.
The imported sand would go in first, then you put the cobbles on top?
Well, it would probably be the reverse. It would probably be the cobble berm would be constructed, and then the sand would be packed in behind the cobbles.
I see. Okay, just stabilize basically.
Right. It looks, if you went down there and looked, it looks, it's kind of a it's kind of a cove sort of affair.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so it's just trying to stabilize and keep the landscaping intact.
Okay, thanks
And
for the clarification.
And I should say that this is, technically it's a repair It's a repair project of something that was done in '07. So
I just wanted to note that Commissioner Patrick joined us. Hello, Janet.
I am very sorry.
That's okay. We're happy to have you.
Thank you.
Okay, we will close the public hearing and move to consideration.
Does anyone feel like there's something other than, location and physical characteristics that has this applicant, has any reason you'd object to this versus the one we just approved?
I went by the site and I think that we should approve it.
Should we just approve it just exactly as we did the last? I'll make a motion that we take the staff's recommendation, we approve this application subject to the 5 conditions of approval that have been that Jeff had read or Robert read earlier.
I'll second.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, there's a motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, call the roll.
Commissioner Bennett,
Yes.
Commissioner Kerr, Commissioner Kerr,
Yes.
Commissioner Knopf,
Yes.
Commissioner Newton,
Yes.
Commissioner Patrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritz,
Yes.
Chair Johnson.
Yes. Okay. Moving on. This is quasi judicial hearing regarding the continuation and consideration of SR 21-06 David Nato request on behalf of John Henry for a setback reduction of the rear yard setback requirement for a deck stairs in conjunction with an addition to the existing resident. SR 21-06 David Nato on behalf of John Henry application to allow a setback reduction to reduce the rear yard setback from the required 15 feet to 11.5 feet to build a new exit stairs into the reconstructed second floor deck according to chapter 17.14 residential medium density zone of the municipal code. The property is located at 1688 South Hemlock Street, tax lot 4103, map 5130 DA, and in residential medium density zone. The request will be reviewed against the municipal code section 17.64.041 setback reductions provision established. Does anyone object to the planning commission to hear the matter at this time? Does any commissioner member believe he or she has a conflict of interest or personal bias? Has any commissioner member had an ex parte contact or made a site visit?
Site visit.
Site visit.
Is it?
Site visit.
Site visit. Okay, staff report?
Yes, this is before you last month and then actually last 2 months. And then you had continued it and asked for more information regarding section 1742 50A6F. And Mr. Veneta responded, and that's in your packet. And Mr. Veneta is on the call. I have nothing else.
Okay. Okay, is there any additional correspondence?
And no.
No. Okay, the pertinent criteria to be considered are noted in the staff report and listed on their criteria sheet on the meeting page of the city website. Testimony, argument, and evidence must be directed towards that criteria or other criteria in a comprehensive plan or municipal code which the person testifying believes to apply to decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statement or evidence sufficient to afford the decision makers and the party an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes the appeal based on that issue. Prior Prior to the conclusion of the initial evidentiary hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional testimony, argument, and evidence regarding the application. The Planning Commission shall grant such a request by continuing the public hearing and leaving the record open for additional written testimony, argument, and evidence. Persons who testify shall receive the recognition of the chair. State your full name, mailing address, and if appearing in a representative capacity, identify who they represent. Okay, is there a presentation by the applicant?
Yes, David Veneta, Tolovana Architects, Post Office Box 648, Tolovana Park, 97145. And I represent the Henry family in this issue. So first of all, I'd like to thank the Planning Commission for the continuance. It allowed me some time to provide additional materials that I've included hopefully in the packet, illustrating in more detail the existing conditions. And they take the form of floor plans for the house, as well as a site plan, I believe, and illustrate with dimensions highlighted in red, both the setbacks and location of the house on the property. So I think what's significant, and I think what the Planning Commission has asked for from me, is information on what reasonable alternatives might exist for a stair off this deck. And hopefully by not only these illustrations, but my narrative, supplemental narrative, I will hopefully show that this is the most reasonable alternative for a stair access. As you know, the house is one of the unique houses, I think there might be 3 total, that are sandwiched between hemlock and forest lawn. I think in hindsight, in talking to all 3 of those property owners, they would have chosen to face their buildings towards forest lawn rather than hemlock, but that's hindsight. And as we all know, that's 2020 vision. But needless to say, this project started out as an enhanced access to forest lawn. However, it was obvious to me early on that not only this provided enhanced access for the owners, but also enhanced exiting for the owners and occupants of the house. And I think that's even more important in my mind, in that the house is actually 3 stories in height, which is really unique to the city of Cannon Beach. The floor plans show an upper floor plan with a bedroom and some kind of loft space. And the only exit currently from that 3rd floor is all the way down through the 2nd floor to the 1st floor and out the front door, or through a rec room indirectly from that stair, again to the exterior. So my contention is that this stair would provide a secondary means of exit from the house and from the 3rd floor and 2nd floor for that matter. And it's really a matter of safety as well as convenience. So in addressing alternatives, reasonable alternatives, you can see that the house is already built to the 5-foot setbacks. So any consideration of an alternative stair for this deck would still need to have a setback reduction. Currently, we're asking for a setback reduction to the west, which is the larger 15-foot rear setback. However, if we were to relocate this stair to the south, maintaining at least a reasonable width for the deck, we'd have to ask for a significant setback to the 5-foot side yard. And anything less than a 3-foot setback would get into fire code issues. So we'd really only be able to provide a 2-foot wide stair if it were to be relocated to the south. And the same thing would apply to the north. The house is also within 5 feet of the north property line to the right on the plan. If we were to either narrow the stair or move the stair in its location at the west any closer to the house, it would significantly reduce the usable area of the deck itself. So I think the significant, consideration is what is reasonable. And we feel that the stair design is located where we have it, reducing the rear setback from 15 to 11.6 is the most reasonable solution. The other aspect of it, and I realize that it's not really part of the criteria, but forest lawn right-of-way is at the property line, of course, but the improved portion of forest lawn is actually shifted to the west away from this deck. And therefore the perceived setback is actually greater than the 15-foot actual setback. So again, that's not part of the criteria. It's just part of the perception, if you will, of this rear yard setback. Any other alternatives such as portable ladders really, I don't think qualify as reasonable. And again, in conclusion, I think 3'6" reduction is the most reasonable solution given the existing conditions of the property. Does that answer the commission's ask questions about reasonable alternatives?
Yeah, so my thinking was if you brought the stairs down, if you took a portion of the deck out and you brought the steps straight down to the ground from there, that you wouldn't be asking for a setback reduction. And the loss of what that opening for the steps going down to the floor or down to the ground level could also be made up by expanding the deck that exists there. So that was my thinking in terms of an alternative exit from the second floor.
I'm not sure how that could be done and leave a usable space for the deck itself. That was something I couldn't figure out. In that part of the problem is the living room juts out with a point. And even if we angle the stairs, the bottom of the stairs, like for example, if we were to angle the stairs at the same angle as the pointed wall or angled wall of the living room, the bottom of the stair would still project into the rear yard setback. So I don't really see how, unless I'm missing something, how we could reconfigure the stair to not project into the rear yard.
Do you mind, I was not part of the last consideration of this.
Yeah.
Do you mind telling me approximately what size? I saw the deck, it didn't look too big, but I couldn't quite tell how big it is. So when you say significant reduction, I'm trying to picture from what square footage deck to what.
Yeah.
If you try to bring the stairs down and stay within the setbacks.
Right. It's about 8 by 10 right now.
Okay.
So that's the 8 foot is in the north-south direction and 10 is in the east-west direction.
Okay.
So basically, in order to meet the setback, the stair would really need to be angled, again, back to what I was mentioning, parallel with the angled living room wall. And it would probably reduce the deck from 10 feet wide in the east-west direction to maybe 6.
Okay.
So it would really be a major reduction.
Okay.
I didn't explore that alternative, because again, I didn't feel that was reasonable and that it would be such a radical reduction.
And would that be reduced to 6 all the way, or is it just sort of a stairwell that's reduced to 6 at one point, but the far side?
Yeah, it would be
Remains 10
6
feet.
at the far side, and maybe 7 at the living room, or it might even be 5 at the narrow part and 7 at the door. You can see there's a door out from the
Okay,
living room to the
right.
deck, and that wall's approximately 6 feet.
Okay.
So yeah, the deck might end up being like a 5 foot by 6 foot, 5 feet wide on one end, 6 feet on the other, and 8 feet wide. So it'd be like a trapezoid
Okay.
and hardly a usable deck.
Okay, any further questions? Okay, are there presentations by proponents? Are there presentations by opponents? Is there a staff response?
No, I have nothing else.
Okay. Does the applicant or proponents wish to make any additional statement?
No, we just sincerely hope that you agree that this is the most reasonable solution. I didn't identify any other alternatives because, again, I did not feel that any of them would be considered reasonable.
Okay, are there any other discussions to be made? Okay, we will close the public hearing and move to consideration.
There was a letter right in our packet in support of this from a neighbor. Or wasn't there at one point?
Yes, there was at one point, yes. In fact, I think in the original, there may have been more than one in the original packet.
The neighbor saying they have no objection to this,
Yes.
but at the addition of a stairway.
I think for safety reasons, considering they have the 3rd floor, that it would be a definite safety asset to have the stairwell.
I agree.
Is that a first and a second?
Could be.
Works for me.
Okay. Okay, did somebody want to make a motion?
Janet, you want to make that a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we go ahead with the stairwell. Maybe I haven't said it quite right, but allow the stairwell to be placed according to the plan.
A second.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, call the roll.
Commissioner Patrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritz,
Yes.
Commissioner Bennett,
Yes.
Commissioner Kerr,
Yes.
Commissioner Knopf,
Yes.
Commissioner Newton,
Yes.
Chair Johnson.
No. Okay, is there a motion for the chair to sign the appropriate orders?
I so move.
I second it.
Call the roll.
Commissioner Kerr,
Yes.
Commissioner Knopf,
Yes.
Commissioner Newton,
Yes.
Commissioner Patrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Burt. Oh, sorry.
Yes.
I didn't really get to
He
that
didn't hear you.
many, so I adjusted the next one.
He heard that setback reduction.
He heard that. Commissioner Lawrence,
Yes.
Commissioner Bennett,
Yes.
Chair Johnson.
Yes. Okay, informational items. Is there anything to report on the tree report? Any ongoing planning items?
Yes, I wanted to remind everyone that February 3rd, I think that's next Thursday, Transportation System Plan Open House at 6 p.m. So that's the preferred alternatives. There'll be a document. We'll post that likely tomorrow. The preferred alternative report drafted that, which summarizes all the alternatives that were out there. And so I would hope that you can join that. The other thing is update on the code audit. So as you know, the city council passed getting rid of the plan development and what's the other portion?
Combining lots, contiguous lots.
Yeah, contiguous lot, exactly, combining lots. Okay, so then, but they tabled the others, and that's going to be first, we believe 1st of March. I got some dates in this evening. It's just to verify with Jen and the booking of the room and everything. We'll have that out hopefully 1st of next week, those dates, and get those on everyone's calendars. So that will be handled, that meeting will handle all the discussion on limitation of square footage and gross floor area ratio of gross floor area. So that's going to be a joint meeting between DRB, Planning Commission, and the City Council for that.
I have a question, Jeff.
Yeah.
This is back to the marijuana store on the corner, coming into Cannon Beach at the, the very north end of Hemlock. I just was curious, do you know or have any idea offhand what percentage of the lot is covered by impervious surface?
I don't have off the top of my head. They have to meet for a lot in, according to DRB, it has to be 10% in softscape, 20% in hardscape or open space. So just 10% have to be in softscape.
10% of the entire lot?
Yes.
So 90% can be impervious surface, including the building?
Yes.
And is that just for commercial property?
It is. Yeah.
Okay.
In the DRB. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And Jeff, you said that a decision the Planning Commission made caused this to happen. What decision?
No, that's that's just the DRB code, right? So design review code allows that.
Well, I see another lot that is totally covered on almost directly behind with gravel, and it's almost behind the new marijuana shop. And what is going in there, and will it be all blacktopped?
Yeah, no, it will have to have 10% softscape as well.
Well, then I think we ought to consider changing that because it gives the whole city a different look with all the blacktop.
And I think 10% softscape is ridiculously low number for even for commercial property. I mean,
you guys will have every opportunity to talk about that in the code audit. So I think that's a great topic. DRB, especially the DRB has been waiting for this code audit. So they agree. They want to update the language of the DRB.
Good. Well, that's good to know. Okay.
Yeah. And I second it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, thanks for that. And also, my last informational item is to thank Janet Patrick for working with the Planning Commission and being a part of this process. And hopefully you'll stay involved in that code audit, maybe not on the committees, but at least give us, stay involved and be engaged in that.
When is Janet's term up?
Right now.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, we'll miss you. Really?
Thank you, Janet.
Thank you, Janet. Appreciate having your input. and
Wow.
Thank you.
all the time you spent.
Yeah.
A lot of time. I have one other question. You have talked about the parking, and when will the parking potential ideas come up to be voted on or to be looked at?
So this meeting coming up next week, the transportation plan will has a lot of the parking strategies in that. So as part of the preferred scenarios going forward. So that'll be in that. The final will come through in April and May is when the actual draft of the transportation system plan. And so once that's done, then it's up to the city council to say, hey, let's start looking at these strategies and putting those on their plans to move them through. And I would expect parking to be right at the top because it was at the top of everything we've heard back so far.
Well, I've noticed in several areas, including the watershed or whatever it is at Fifth and Hemlock, if the boulders there would just be moved over a couple feet, you could add another car there. And there's a couple other places where giant boulders have been placed that parking could occur if looking around the city.
All right. Well, yeah, thank you.
Janet, are you planning to maybe be on another committee?
Not right at this time, but I would consider it.
Yeah, like RB or something.
Yeah,
That might be a really good one.
yeah, we're missing DRB. Well, I think we still need some for DRB.
Well, is there an application for it?
Oh yeah, on just go on, either ask Jen, call up Jen, or we'll send you one. Okay.
If you'd send me one, I would appreciate it.
Okay, will do.
Jeff, I had just, well, two things really. Came up a couple of times tonight, the lack of an understanding of what is a qualified contractor around some of the stabilization projects we're considering, and I think we're probably going to be considering a lot more of. It's probably something to come up at that joint session, but it would be great if you or Robert had an opportunity to maybe talk to the state about what they do, what they use. Maybe we can wing off that a little bit, just so we have some sort of outline. I have no clue what, I mean, whether you need an engineering degree or not.
Yeah, I'll be happy to look into that, Clay. I would say that the difficulty is, like, I think in the Friends letter, spoke to it. The difficulty is, like the ones that you saw tonight, I think Mike said it as well, you don't need the I don't think the geo type of report. That's why we're waiting on that other one, the Brown, is because we asked for a report on that. So, we'll look and see, but I think even when we go, I think it's a great thing for the code audit, because we need to establish maybe like what are the thresholds, which ones need these kind of experts or whatever experts you would need, because I think they're kind of few and far between as well, and how getting contractors right now is even in the building trade. So I'll look into that and see even who and what, because Crest is also a great one to ask this, whose works in this area.
Great idea. Yeah, that's a great idea.
I'll follow up with them.
And the second thing, it's such a real weird world we're in now. This may have happened, I was absent last time, but Anna, we have not met personally. I'm excited you're here based on the presentation you made last summer. I think that was on some state land. That was very impressive. So I think we're very lucky to have you here, and welcome aboard.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes. And Jeff, one other thing is I was hoping that you would come back, and maybe not till the code audit, or, I don't think there's anything real pressing, but with some language from other jurisdictions regarding view. You talked about view corridors, but some kind of view ordinances, if they exist, if they work, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I did forward that to the consultants for the code audit to
Oh, good.
research. So, but yeah, I think the first meeting with the consultants will focus on that, the leftover from the first track. But then I expect we'll start getting into the other components.
Okay, great.
Okay, is there anything else for good of the order?
I just had, it has been since the first of the year that my Georgia Bulldogs won the national. And I can't let a meeting go without that. Go Dogs.
Is that going to go into the minutes?
Better.
Yeah.
I don't even know what the Georgia Bulldogs are, so. Is it like a football team or something? What is it?
Well, I also want to close by thanking Janet Patrick for your service on the planning commission meetings. And I realize that we didn't always agree with items, but we had many unanimous decisions over the time that you were here. So that's a very good sign. And I also want to thank Anna Morit for coming on board. And I hope you have as good a time as the rest of us do.
Thank you.
And I would
Okay.
have made celebration cookies if we had been in person, but.
Yeah, we need them.
Carol, one last thing. Let me just see if Jan had anything, because I usually ask her because she can't raise her hand. So,
No.
Hey, Jan, did you have anything? She must.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. She must not then.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, in that case.
Bye, Jan.
Okay, thank you all, and we are adjourned.
Hi,
Good night.
hi.